So with that, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as amended.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion has been made and properly seconded. Is there any further conversation? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hands. All opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion passes. All right, thank you, everybody. So I'm going to go slightly out of order. As one of our guests, Dr. Campbell, is here to be able to discuss with us something under 5C. So, Mr. Manager, I'll kick you off with Ms. Bernadette, if you would like to start.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council.
Good afternoon.
I'm before you this afternoon to introduce the consultant firm that has been selected to complete our compensation and classification study, Management Advisory Group, and we'll be referring to them as MAG, is a full-service management consulting firm that, with expertise in human resources projects, organization review, employee performance management skills, executive compensation, and class description development. Our project manager and initial contact is none other than Dr. Russell Campbell. Dr. Campbell has more than 21 years of public sector experience in human resources management, organizational development, and strategic planning. His consulting experience encompasses state and local government evaluation, program management, efficiency analysis, survey analysis, and revenue enhancement. Dr. Campbell has an undergraduate degree from the University of South Carolina, a master's degree in public administration from Troy State University, and a doctorate in education from the University of South Carolina. He has done work for Durham County government, the City of Winston-Salem, the Town of Chapel Hill, City of Tampa, Florida, City of Savannah, Georgia, the Atlanta, Georgia Public Schools, and Chesapeake, Virginia Public Schools, just to name a few. So at this time, Mr. City Manager, if you have any comments, and then I'll turn it over.
Thank you, Bernadette. Just a couple. So tonight, you know, the HR department with their team went through approximately 10 to 12, I think, bids for this, 14. So we had a really good representational cross-section of a lot of industries that were looking to help us with this pay and classification study. So I think we've chosen a very qualified group here. And so tonight we're going to talk about, or he's going to present how he does this study and how they've done this for hundreds of other jurisdictions. And also there's an addendum in there about doing an organizational study that he'll be presenting, because some of you have expressed concerns about, you know, what the structure of the city needs to look like, and some of the opportunities that we might have in looking at, you know, the number of employees we have and things like that. So that's also going to be something that'll be presented with just for information tonight, and get your responses back on what you feel the need for that is. So, Doctor, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. I appreciate the really nice introduction from Bernadette. I guess we can just sum it up by saying I've been around a while. I've done about 300 of these type studies around the country. I also have an expertise in working with utilities, electric, gas, water, and sewer. I've been an HR director in local government as well as an assistant city manager. Right now, I'm working with the city of Winston-Salem. I just recently completed the same type of project for Durham County, North Carolina, and I've previously done some work for the town of Chapel Hill within the past 18 months. So I have a really strong background in understanding the dynamics of the labor market here in the state of North Carolina. What I want to do this evening is just kind of take you through an overview of the process and methodology that we use to develop a compensation system, determining what the value of the jobs should be within the organization. There are some basic tenets that we adhere to that any company in this business would have to follow suit with. And so I want to make sure you understand those. And then there's some things that we do that are a little bit different. We think that those things separate us from the marketplace. As I go through, if you have questions, I'll certainly be happy to entertain those throughout the presentation. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started.
Keep on going past it. We're going out of order because I want you to feel the
Just briefly about the company, we've been in business for about 25 years. We've worked in 40 of the 50 states. Our client base is exclusively local government, municipalities, counties, and school districts, as well as special purpose districts and public safety entities. As a company, we've done over 600 of these projects. As an individual, I've done about 300 in my own right. In North Carolina, I mentioned Winston-Salem, Durham County, Chapel Hill. Also, we've done some work for Goldsboro, as well as Charlotte, Mecklenburg. The members of the team, you'll see myself at the top. You can tell I was really young when I took that photo. I had some hair then. Times have changed. Steve Foster will be part of the team. He'll be doing the data collection from the other cities and counties that we're going to be comparing you to with respect to compensation. Dr. Long is our president CEO. His expertise, although we're not going to be looking at public safety for this particular project, but that is his expertise. Tomorrow he will hold a Zoom call with department heads to give them the same type of briefing that I will be providing to you this evening. There's our job description writer. We'll be rewriting all the position descriptions and making sure the qualifications reflect what you'll find in a modern organization with respect to today's labor market. Carolyn Long is our founder. We're a female-owned firm. She's the only person in this line of work for any company that I'm aware of who's actually recognized by the Fourth Circuit Court out of Virginia as an expert witness when it comes to pay equity and compensation-related issues. So she's a part of the team. And Tracy and Tasha, they'll be providing some support behind the scenes as we go through this process. I'll serve as a project director as well as the lead analyst on the project. I'll be putting together the findings and recommendation as well as meeting with the department heads individually to talk about recruitment and retention difficulties that they may be experiencing in their particular areas. I also shared earlier that if any of the council members would like to speak with me as a project director individually to talk about any concerns related to this project and the other project that we're proposing to do, I certainly will make time to accommodate that. And so it's important that we understand what the project is designed to do and what it's not designed to do. So in terms of compensation classification, the first step is to collect information regarding all the positions in terms of what the duties and responsibilities are that the people are performing as employees with the city of Goldsboro. There's only two ways to validate what someone's doing. The easiest way is direct observation, which is very exhausting in terms of time because you do have a couple of hundred employees, you have multiple locations, and so it would require us to actually come out to the job site for each individual job title, observe what that person is doing in terms of their current position capacity. Very inefficient processes, obviously, I'm sure you understand. So the more practical approach, which is what 99% of the organizations that are in this line of business do, is design what we call a job profile questionnaire that ties into the criteria that we're going to be using to rank the jobs. And I'll share the criteria with you as I go through the presentation. But we're going to ask the employees to complete a job profile questionnaire. It will be an online document. It will be hosted on our server. They will be allowed to log in using their employee ID number and take the time to fill out the questionnaire. In a single setting, if you sat down this evening and wanted to do it from start to finish, it'd probably take you about an hour and 15 minutes. We usually give the employees 7 to 10 days to complete the questionnaire. So 7 to 10 days to do an hour and 15 minutes worth of work. We also give about a week worth of time for the supervisors to come back and review the content of the questionnaire that was submitted by their subordinates. But there's a caveat. The supervisors cannot change the original content that was completed by the employee. They can, beside each question and response, they can make a comment whether they agree or disagree, or if something was excluded or not included, they can make sure that they bring that to our attention. If we see that there are some significant differences between what the employee submitted and what the supervisor stated during his or her review, we'll set those aside. We'll come back through HR, who's the point of contact for this project on your side, and we'll sit down and we'll figure out what needs to be done to ascertain what's the correct information. Sometimes that entails setting up a meeting out at the department with the supervisor and or employee to talk through any issues of that type. One of the tenets that is paramount to this process is known as internal equity. What does that mean? Without the concept of internal equity, we would just pay every employee along one long, massive salary range. We would disavow any credit for the fact that some jobs are more complex than others. Some require greater levels of education and experience. So without internal equity, we would be doing a disservice to the different occupations in the city and the individuals that hold those occupations. So under the concept of internal equity, we employ 14 job factors that we use to analyze the positions within the city by looking at the information that was submitted in the questionnaire, organizational charts, existing job descriptions, notes from employee meetings, whether they're with department heads and or any other individuals associated with the city, to actually go in and score each job. We actually score them on a scale of 1 to 10 in each one of the 14 categories. And as we do that, the computer system or software that we use will keep a quantitative point track of all the scores for each job, and then we can print a report showing, based on quantitative score, here's the most complex job in the organization, and here in descending order are the additional positions all the way down to the least complex job in the organization as defined by the overall quantitative point score. This is what we call getting the complexity of the jobs internally in order. We haven't done anything about compensation at this point. We're just getting the rank order in line because, as you all know, it's imperative that we pay jobs based on the nature of the work and the qualifications for the job. With that said, some jobs merit greater compensation levels than others, and this helps us define that by doing the internal equity analysis. The external equity analysis is looking outside of this organization at a group of mutually agreed upon competitors, and I'm going to show you who administration and the firm have agreed to look at to see what they're paying for similar positions in their organization. Now, we're not going to be capturing data on what incumbents are making in these other organizations because we can't build a statistically valid study by trying to use actual salaries of employees in other cities or counties because there are variables that we can't account for, such as those individuals could have started higher into the pay structure than is normal based on their experience and education. That particular organization or organizations could have certain policies that drive salary growth, such as merit or performance pay, type incentives in their organization. And so how long they've been in the role and how long they've been with the organization also has an impact on pay. So in order to make this a defensible project or a defensible study, we use the pay structure, the pay range of these other organizations as the basis to come up with the prevailing average annual salary for a given position, okay? Not the salary of the person currently in the position, but the value of the salary range. Now that's important because the one concept I want you to take away from this briefing is this whole exercise is an exercise about the value of the job, not the value of the person. It doesn't matter who sits in the seat or holds the title. It's about the job, the composition of duties, and the qualifications needed to do that. We do not look at performance as it relates to this because performance is an individual attribute that should be acknowledged through their annual performance review. That has nothing to do with the value of the position. So we're focused on the value of the position, not the value of the person. In most cases, the value of the person probably exceeds the value of the compensation level that we'll come back with. But that's for you to determine through their annual performance review. And so internal equity, external equity, those are two things that any company or consultant in this line of work must establish or address in order to be able to have statistically valid recommendations and results on the back end of this process. Now, once we create the new structure based on two sets of data, the quantitative point score, the market data from the other peers, we use a statistical modeling technique called linear regression. That if you remember algebra or geometry from high school or college, same concept where you're plotting two independent sets of data, trying to find the unique similarities between those sets of data. And so we use a interrelational database that has a built-in program algorithm that once those two sets of data go in, it will create the new pay structure. And then the employees in the particular jobs will be assigned to a grade which has a salary range on the salary table based upon their overall point score. So once we transition everyone over to the new plan, we'll go department by department, person by person, to determine what adjustments, if any, are recommended to get people to the salary level that they should be at based on the job that they're currently holding for the city. We generally come in with 2 or 3 different options because in the beginning, in order to make this a transparent process, and so no one can come back and say, well, Russell built this plan because he was told there was $1 million that had been set aside for salaries, and just so happens his plan came back at $1,001,001. So to prevent that or anyone worrying about that, I have not had any conversations with administration with regard to has there been any conversations about setting aside monies in advance of the results in anticipation of the study. I don't want to know that at this point. The numbers will be standing on their own merit. This will be an open, transparent process. When I produce the initial report and I show you where you are in the market and what it's going to cost to get you in line with the market, then we start having conversations about what may be available in terms of resources to implement the study. When we come in, generally we assume that the goal is to implement the study the very next fiscal year. However, some organizations that we work with, funding does not allow the very next fiscal year implementation, so the study has to be staggered in over a period of time. Generally speaking, if we got to stagger it in, we will build a 3-year plan to fully implement the study within a 3-year period. If it takes longer than 3 years to implement the study, then by the time you got to the end of the 3rd year, the data would be old. The labor market externally certainly changes depending on the overall nature of the economy. Could be boom or bust. And then internally, you could have new leadership at the top or new leadership in departments where they're restructuring, reassigning duties and responsibilities. So if we've got to stagger the study in, it will be a plan to do that within 3 years. Now, I cannot say at this point whether I think, based on the data, that it's probably realistic to expect to be able to implement next fiscal year or not. But we will have that type of information within the coming weeks. And then, of course, in terms of evaluating future positions, new positions that are created, or reclassification requests that may come through HR, it will be easy to place those positions into a pay grade with the schedule or structure that we've come up with. So from a best practices standpoint, you shouldn't have to do a comprehensive study of this type for at least 3 to 5 years, all right? Because during that period, a lot of things, as I said, could have changed internally, and there could have been external changes as well. So every 3 to 5 years, you want to do a comprehensive study. In the interim, you'll have your HR department do some spot surveys for a grouping of positions, just to see if there are anything significantly happening in the marketplace among certain occupational groups. What we will not be looking at in the compensation study is identifying staffing levels or making recommendations to restructure or realign departments. This process, as I said earlier, does not evaluate employee performance and capabilities. When we start meeting and interfacing with employees to explain their process and how to complete the questionnaire, we will not make any guarantees about salary increases, and we will not make any recommendations to reduce anyone's pay either. Even if we find somebody who's over the top end of the recommendation that we come back with, we wouldn't recommend cutting their pay. There are some other practices in HR that we would recommend to address that. But quite frankly, as I've looked at the composition of jobs and the market area and what you're currently paying, I don't think that's going to be an issue for this particular project. So why is the study needed? Well, I was looking at several years of turnover data in the organization, and I just pulled out a couple of different fiscal years to see how it was shaking up. Over the past 5 years, it's kind of been up and down, almost like a roller coaster. Some years it was low, some years it got really high, up around 18%, but it seems to vacillate between 8%, which is where it was in 2019, to 13% where it was in 2013. Now, in terms of best practices, you generally want to keep your turnover rate between 5 and 7%. You don't want to see it go above 7%. And so you can see we went over 7% in 2019, and then we went quite a bit higher in 2023 when we hit 13%. I was looking at time to fill positions when the organization posts vacancies. Typically, you should be able to fill any job within the organization within 60 days. You should be able to fill any job from the very top to the very bottom. You have some recruitments that are taking longer than 90 days because the salary level is not generating an applicant pool that has sufficient qualified people. One of the things you have to I won't say shy away from, but one of the things you have to closely consider and take into account when you're trying to fill vacancies is, do you have the capacity to actually develop and train someone? I've seen too many instances in local government when the applicant pool didn't produce a lot of highly qualified employees, so you take someone who's marginally qualified with the understanding that you're going to train and develop them. Well, that causes you to have to understand that you've got to have someone who's capable and has the time of training and developing another employee. That takes away from other functions or responsibilities that may exist in the department in terms of service delivery. So you're better off trying to find, for the most part, qualified people who can hit the ground running, and really the learning curve for them is to learn your organizational culture and structure, but in terms of the nature of the job, they already come to the table with experience in order to do that. Now, you pay a premium for experience because that's an asset that the individual applicant has obtained over time, and so it does have value in the marketplace, but research shows that the return on your investment is much greater when you hire competent, qualified people who at minimum meet the minimum qualifications, but hopefully that exceed it as well. You've also got some retention issues. Now here's where you really lose out with respect to organizational development. You've invested in training and developing these people, and then after they fully train and become proficient at their job, within 3 years they go somewhere else. And the other organization is benefiting from the resources that have been invested in this individual by the city of Goldsboro. So you're experiencing both of these things right now, recruiting difficulties as well as retention challenges, holding on to the people that are here that you've developed over time. Also, because of the recruitment and particularly the retention, you don't really have a succession plan in place to develop the next group of department heads or leaders in the organization. You know, people often ask me, Russell, what's the biggest difference between the public sector and the private sector in terms of developing people? And my comment is, if you're familiar with Ford Motor Company, which is over 100 years old, in the history of that company, I think they've only brought in fewer than 5 CEOs from the outside, because they develop the talent within, whether it's one of the Ford heirs or someone else from the finance division or manufacturing. They're always looking to develop that next set of leadership from within, and that's how you maintain a culture within an organization. Consistency in terms of what is being said and what is being preached to the workforce with respect to how we do business. So succession planning is negatively impacted when you've got retention challenges as well as recruiting difficulties. Low salaries negatively impact morale. Now, on any given day, we all can have a bad day, but the majority of the time, I, like many employees that work for the city, I enjoy my job. I enjoy what I do. I like to think that I make a difference. But at the same time, I want to be able to earn a living where I can afford to live and support my family. And so when I know that some of the adjoining communities within a easily 15, 20-minute commute are making more money for the same type of job with the same type of qualifications, that impacts morale. It makes me feel like the organization I'm working for doesn't value me to the degree that some of these other jurisdictions are. So I'm convinced that in some departments we do have some morale issues. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying money will take care of all of the ills of an organization. Sometimes it's not compensation that causes more low morale. Sometimes it's the leadership of a particular department. And so those things impact it as well. And the other thing, in terms of why the study is needed, there's really no true philosophy on compensation within the organization. Where do we choose to pay? Do we want to be at the 75th percentile or the 80th percentile? Compensation, how do we define it? Is it just general increases or COLAs plus longevity bonuses or COLAs plus merit pay? What do we want to do in an organization that defines how we view and value compensation for our workforce? Which, by the way, this is a service-driven industry, local government, so you can't get anything done to the degree that you want without competent people in place to make that happen. And so we need to develop a philosophy of the organization. That's important because the leadership at the elected level changes over time. And so when new people come on board, it would be nice to have a document that outlines how we've traditionally viewed compensation within our organization, how we value our workforce, how we go about looking at different peers and who are our peers in the region that we compare ourselves to when it comes to compensation and or benefits. And so that's one of the things we want to develop for the city is a philosophy as it relates to pay. Now, the scope of the work, which was defined in the request for proposal that we responded to, talks about in terms of scope of work or objectives that we're going to look at all full-time and part-time positions that are associated with employment here in the city. The Human Resources Department is our primary point of contact. We will collect data directly from other government entities, but we will also use private sector data. Unfortunately, we can't contact private companies directly and let them know that, hey, the state of North Carolina, like most of the 50 states, has certain statutes in place where certain documents and information is considered public information. Well, that applies to cities and counties and school districts where if you don't respond to a FOIA request, you can file a complaint usually with the Secretary of State office in the state. But that doesn't apply to private companies, and they're not going to provide that information because they look at it as a competitive advantage, so they're not going to give you information on what they're paying for certain jobs. But we can get it through another avenue. It requires a little bit of effort, but we can get it from the Federal Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics, where we've got a couple thousand people who collect data for the Consumer Price Index data that you often see published in the paper and on the news when they talk about consumer prices. They collect this data for the jobs report, as well as entitlement programs that are administered by the federal government. So we can get the private sector data by using that avenue. So that will allow us to look and see for jobs that exist in the city organizational structure that also exist in the private sector, what's the prevailing wage for those type of jobs. So we'll have both public and private sector data. We'll also prepare new position descriptions to make sure they're ADA compliant. We'll also look at the Fair Labor Standards Act, which governs which positions are covered for overtime and non-overtime, often referred to as exempt and non-exempt status. There's been a recent change in July as to the threshold, which is the minimum salary someone needs to make to be considered as an exempt employee. So we'll be looking at that to make sure you're in compliance with that as well. We'll also look at the salary structure to make sure it supports recruitment and retention of employees, as I've said. We'll also write policies that govern how do you handle hiring someone and making a salary offer when their experience and education exceed the minimum you ask for. Well, how do you place them within the salary structure? If someone gets promoted, how should their pay be adjusted to reflect the promotion? Or reclassification. Duties were added to a job or duties could have been taken away from a job. How does that impact where it was initially placed? So we'll write policies to support the plan so that there's consistency in the process and everyone is treated under the same set of guidelines or rules. We also want to make sure we address what is an ongoing problem of salary compression. What is salary compression? Salary compression exists in the organization when you have a group of employees with varying years of tenure in their position or with the organization, but their salaries all clustered around the lower end of the pay schedule. And then what happens if you haven't done a pay study, a comp study in the last 3 to 5 years, your ranges are really have fallen behind the marketplace, but you still got vacancies to fill, and some of them are crucial vacancies where you got to have somebody with that particular expertise. You wind up hiring someone off the street, and they leapfrog over people that have been here for a while with similar responsibility for the sake of you got to fill that role. And so one of the things we will do is we'll create a statistical formula where we're going to break up that cluster so that there will be employees all along the salary range spectrum. There will be some down at the entry level because they're relatively inexperienced, and then going forward within the salary structure, there will be more experienced employees. So there should be employees from the low end all the way up to the high end in terms of the structure. So we want to disperse individual employee salaries so there's balance within the structure, and we don't have certain pockets or groups clustered around the low end of the salary structure. And we'll work with HR on how to maintain the system going forward to make sure it gets you through the next cycle, which will be 3 to 5 years down the road. In terms of steps to do this, I broke it down into, I believe, 7 steps. The initial step 1, we've already started having conversations over the past week with HR, with administration, about some of the historical recruitment and retention issues in the organization, some of the things that administration and HR have heard from employees from exit interviews when they leave the city, some of the things that they say that led them to start looking for another opportunity elsewhere, particularly those things that revolve around compensation. We'll be setting a schedule in the next week or so where we'll be holding group meetings with employees to roll out the job questionnaire, as well as give them the opportunity to ask questions of the staff. We've already started dissecting your current plan and looking at issues like salary compression, looking at positions that we know are non-competitive within the current structure so that we can address those as we build a new plan. The market survey, we agreed on a set of competitors. I'm going to show you that shortly. And so we're in the process now of designing the survey document to send out to those competitors for information. And then in step 5, we start developing the new structure. Typically in a local government, you could have a single pay structure called a unified structure or a general structure where all the jobs are on one pay plan. I'm more apt because not all jobs move in the marketplace to the same degree. Some jobs increase in value faster than others. So we may have 2 pay structures, but they'll be built from the same statistical tree. But they'll be set up to where it's based on occupational groupings, so that if one set of occupational groups needs to be adjusted, you can do so without having to adjust the entire organizational pay structure. When it's time for the initial report in step 6, I come back, meet with HR and administration, go through each section, interpret the narratives, the tables, allow them to ask initial questions, and then give them a week or so to review it, develop questions, concerns. I respond to those. Then we meet individually with the department heads a second time to talk about the impact to their department, allow them to review it, and respond with questions which we we'll review and get back to them. Along the way, if there's anything that merits a reconsideration or an adjustment, we will do that. But if we find something that we feel that the data supports it, our expertise and experience support it, then we're going to defend it. And I would think that's what you'd want in your consultant. And then step 7, I would relish the opportunity, and I believe that's something that Kelly and Matt have talked about, me coming back and making a formal presentation of results to the council of the results of the study, which will include the financial impact. Everything we do is in a designed database that is particularly used for compensation, classification, development. We can create any type of structure you can imagine within this system. Here are the job factors, the 14 factors, and these factors are universal. They apply to any job, whether it's a management job, non-management job, exempt or non-exempt. Actually, when these were designed and developed, we consulted with psychologists, educators, with respect to the presence of these factors in a variety of jobs. And so as I go through and grade them on a scale of 1 to 10, based on my scoring matrix, I'm going to assign that score in each one of those job factors, and they're weighted. Some carry more weight than others. Like data is referencing the different reports and documents the employees develop and review in terms of how complex are those documents. Could be something as simple as an incident report or as complex as a strategic plan or a budget document. Once I identify the task associated with a given job, I can make some correlation between how judgment is exercised, how decision-making is exercised in that job, and if someone exercises poor judgment or bad decisions, what's the implications to the city? Could someone get hurt, whether it be an employee or a citizen, or could there be some type of legal liability? Asset responsibility. We're looking to see if you have any financial responsibility, like managing a budget, or you can approve expenditures, or you're custodian of equipment or materials. Based on the data that you're working with and asset responsibility, we're able to ascertain or make some definitive decisions on the complexity of the work. We look at the equipment that the employee works with, everything from a PC or a software application to operating a city vehicle such as a car or a backhoe or a dump truck. Any physical requirements, communication, who are the employees interacting with internally and externally in order to complete their job duties and responsibilities, any math or statistical analysis associated with that position, which ties back to the data, the reports that they're working with, Also, it ties back in the complexity of the work. Unavoidable hazards. Some jobs, by the very nature of the job, exposes the employee to potential harm. It's easy to see in public safety with fire and police, but also in public works. If you're going down into a manhole cover, there are toxic fumes and gases. Or if you are working in street maintenance, you're patching a pothole, you sit the orange cones out there, but if some knucklehead's texting and going 40 miles an hour, you could get mowed down. You know, in North Carolina and South Carolina, every year, at least a dozen employees lose their lives because somebody ran over them while they were doing work on the street or sidewalk. And so the greater the hazards, the more value that has in terms of the compensation for that position. Safety of others. Everyone in the organization bears some responsibility for safety, but depending on where you are in the pecking order, it can be more extensive. And then education experience, not what the employee personally holds, but what is considered, based on today's labor market, what is considered the appropriate level of education and experience for each job in the organization. And so we want to raise the bar, whereas when new employees are hired, you're getting people who are educated, who have the appropriate amount of prerequisite experience in order to come in and be successful in their job capacity. The questionnaire, as I said, the employees will complete it. Supervisors can't change the original submission, but they will be able to review and comment on it. Here are the labor market peers. We kind of broke them up into two categories based on talking with HR and administration. We have what we call proximity market competitors. It's like your backyard. These are organizations that are within a 60-mile radius, and they all have populations of over 20,000. So with respect to the proximity competitors, we have City of Cary, Apex, New Bern, Wilson, Kinston, Jacksonville, Rocky Mount, and Craven. And then we have what we call primary market competitors, where we know for a fact that people have resigned and left here to go take positions in some of these organizations. They may be a little farther beyond the 60-mile radius, but if the compensation is high enough, people are willing to make that adjustment. So here we're talking about Fayetteville, City of Raleigh, City of Greenville, Wilson County, Wake County, Wayne County, Pitt County. We have Craven County again, and Johnson County. And then ONET is where we get our private sector data through the Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics. So those are the organizations that we'll be comparing you to or collecting data from. We will develop a survey profile of your jobs, what the duties are, what the qualifications are, and we'll send that out along with some additional information to the peers. They'll complete it, send it back, and then we'll compile the information. As you see there in that example, it says accountant 2. You'll see there's a description of the position and what the qualifications are, and then down at the bottom, you'll see all of the respondents who provided information indicating that they had a similar job, and then what their salary ranges are. And then we can zero in and see where you are in terms of actual dollar difference, plus or minus, or where you are with respect to as a percentage. Are you 3% higher or 5% low? We can ascertain that. As a rule of thumb, we use 5% for a lot of things in compensation. If a single position is greater than 5% behind the market, that's a telltale sign that you're probably already experiencing recruitment and retention difficulties, but if not, it's definitely on the horizon. And so when we get back with the results and we see what it's going to cost in terms of a change to payroll, organizations who have maintained a competitive pay structure, they've been able to keep their eye on the market and make adjustments in the interim. Usually the change to payroll is 5% or less. Those that have not done such a good job of maintaining their pay structure relative to the market, usually the cost in terms of change in payroll exceeds 5%. So I'm eager to see where you fall within that spectrum. And so when we put this initial study together, there'll be multiple tables and reports. One of the tables is what we call the proposed pay plan. On the left, you'll see the pay grade, then moving to the right, the job title, and then you'll see the salary ranges broken down on an annual basis. And then we also break it down on an hourly rate as well. The higher the grade, the higher the value of the position. Then we can produce what we call cost reports. We can show you what your current pay structure is, what the current title is, and then on the second line, which is shaded in gray, it shows you if we recommended changing the title, because one of the things we want to do in this exercise is make sure people's titles approximate the duties that they have. It lines up with the nature of the work based on what you would typically see in an organization of this type with the same type of position. And then we can show you a side-by-side comparison of what our proposed pay range is versus what you had. We show you whether it's a full-time or a part-time position, the new pay grade, when the employee was hired, promoted, their current salary, any adjustments that we're recommending, and what their new proposed salary should be based on the study. And of course, their name is in this section as well. And then we summarize that for each department, and then we summarize it for the organization as a whole. In this example, this was a large organization that did a few years ago, actually Broward County, Florida, which is Fort Lauderdale. Their payroll at that time was just under $248 million. We found that there were 1,219 people below the new minimum of the salary structure that we came up with. That's 1,219 out of a total number of people of 5,148. It also shows you that out of 5,148, 2,387 received an adjustment, 2,761 did not. And then for compression, where it says adjustment toward maximum, that's where we give what we call equity adjustments. It was about 8.1 million, 2,385 employees out of 5,148 qualified for the compression adjustment. So in this example, you'll see that we had the 3.7, the 8.1. If you add those together, the study had a financial impact of 11.8 million. Added back to the original payroll of 247 million, it increased payroll from 247 to 259. But look at the percentage change in payroll, less than 5%. It was only 4.8. And so it's been long held that Broward County is one of the premier government employers in South Florida, and this bared it out because it was less than a 5% change in total payroll. Why we thought we were positioned to do this as well or as better than anyone else in the business. We've got a track record here in North Carolina, successful track record, extensive local government experience, and we're not like some companies where they rolled out an old ball guy like me to give you the sales pitch, and somebody right out of grad school is crunching numbers. Well, I'm the old ball guy who gives you the sales pitch, and I'm going to crunch the numbers too. Not someone who's never worked in local government before. Our software is first rate. Some companies use Excel with some predetermined formulas where we have a relational database. We can produce multiple reports. We can run hypotheticals, what if analysis. And so we'll be accessible 24/7, I will. So there'll never be a problem with catching up with me. Let's say, for example, 6 months after the final report has been presented and adopted, and you've implemented the study, and I get a call from Bernadette saying, well, council has decided to restructure the planning department 6 months after the study was done. All you gotta do is call me, fill me in on what happened, what changed. I'll go back and redo the planning department at no additional cost to make sure it reflects what has been changed in that department. So if there are any changes within the first year, there's no additional cost for doing that. So this is the compensation and classification study. One of the things that it became clear to me, and I try to do research, about what's going on in the community and the governmental entity that we're working with, and it seems like the city would benefit greatly from having someone independent come in, look at the staffing levels in each department, determine whether they're overstaffed or understaffed, look at the organizational structure as a city overall, and then the structure within the different departments, through the lens of making sure that the structure we have in place as a whole and at the department level supports accountability, supports communication, and more importantly, supports effective service delivery. Are we using technology to the maximum advantage to bring about efficiencies within the organization? Are some of the things we spent money on, are we getting a return on those types of investments? And so that type of review is a different type of review, but it goes hand in hand with the compensation piece. Because if you're being asked to pay people more, then you want to make sure you're paying competitively, but you're paying from the standpoint of an organization that has its house in order. It's organized. And we don't have issues with communication and accountability. And we've got a process in place where we've looked at our procedures and make sure that they support the overall goals of the organization. So we've asked that you consider amending our contract to let us do this here. This is kind of like once in a lifetime thing for the elected officials. This isn't something you do often. It's kind of rare to do it. but when we are doing compensation studies, it's the ideal time to do it. Because usually these studies, the organizational review generates some potential savings, and that savings can be piled into salary adjustments in the future going forward. And so, in a nutshell, that is what I wanted to talk about. Introduce myself, the company, the two projects that we're talking about. We're talking about a phase one, which is a compensation study, determining what the value of the job should be, and transitioning employees into the new pay structure, looking at the individual impact, department impact, and the overall impact to the city, as well as looking at, FLSA, exempt, non-exempt job descriptions, and those sort of things. But then looking at staffing. I know as I was looking at some of the organizational charts from the budget document, there was a couple of things that I scratched my head on. And maybe it's nothing to scratch my head about because I don't know the backstory behind it. But some things kind of stood out. And then when I started looking, looking at some other things, it seemed to me that this would be something that it would be a good time to undertake. Now, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to field those at this time.
So Council, we've heard a wonderful presentation about
Thank you.
both that which is already been contracted, that which is already part of our budget, as well as potential add-on that gets into a little bit of the structural compensation. Ms. Dove, Dr. Campbell, any questions for either or of course, Mr. Livingston, any comments or questions from council at this time?
I do.
Please.
I have some questions, sir, or Ms. Bernadette might can help me. So, I'm kind of a little bit familiar with your study. Do we have any internal type database like Airtable or anything that already captures any of that organizational review information or those organizational charts like you're talking about that maybe you could access and compare? That's question number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is you said that the employees are going to have to enter their ID number. That gives absolutely no anonymity to their answers. Is that a concern in any way? And then the next thing is it roughly takes about an hour and 15 minutes to do the questionnaire. Are we going to allow staff work time to do those questionnaires so that in case they don't have access to electronics at home or time at home to do it? And then is it a requirement for a staff member to do it? Because if not, what type of percentage are you thinking that we are going to get back so that we have accurate numbers to compare with?
Great questions. I'll start with the last question first. Typically, we usually get about 70% of the employees in the organization completing the questionnaire. From my standpoint, as the person that's doing the analysis, as long as I get at least one questionnaire from each job classification, I can facilitate the study. But I want as many as I can. For example, for those jobs where we have multiple incumbents in the same position, let's say, for example, we've got 5 accounting technicians. Well, as I review those 5 independent questionnaires, I notice that 2 are performing work that's at a higher level than the other 2. So then I would recommend an appropriate title for them that suits the nature of the work that they're currently doing. They've been misclassified as accounting techs, and maybe they should be more like financial analysts. So that helps us make sure that we're treeing up titles along with to match the duties that the individuals are doing. In terms of time to do this, employees can do this from anywhere they have access to an internet connection and a computer, whether it's a desktop or a laptop. You can't do it on a smartphone. Typically in organizations, and we do about 60 of these a year, the organizations allow employees time to do it as long as it doesn't interfere with work during their particular shift. We do not advocate making this a mandatory. It's a voluntary thing. I think as adults, if we have some folks in the organization who feel that their compensation doesn't speak to the nature of the work and the complexity of the work they do, this is an ample opportunity to find out whether it's true or not. And so there's no downside for an employee. You can't lose any money. And if you're going to be here for a while, the values of the jobs overall tend to go up. So there's long-term growth prospects when you do these type of studies. So that it's a win-win, I think, from the employee standpoint. Now, going back to your other question regarding, I'm trying to remember, you had about 4 or 5 there.
Yeah, They're gonna be
Anonymity.
entering their employee ID number, so
Yes.
they have absolutely no anonymity
No,
to the questionnaire.
we are not asking for anything that is sensitive. We're not asking for social security numbers or birth dates. We're asking them to go in and tell us what they do. And the job descriptions are public information, and so there shouldn't be no hesitancy there. As long as the employee is talking about their job, there shouldn't be any reluctance to put down the facts as they are. We're not trying to make this a witch hunt to where we're trying to, get dirt on someone or something negative from a supervisor, find out negative information about a supervisor, or ask the employee to assess the ability of the supervisor. We're not asking that. We're just asking about, what do you do? What are your job duties? How much time you spend on these different duties? What are the qualifications for your position? And that's all relatively non-sensitive information. And was there another question in there, ma'am?
No, I was just curious, Ms. Bernadette, do we have any type of platform that we use internally to capture any of that information, like Airtable, anything like that we use?
There are some job descriptions in place, not for every department, and some of the ones that exist are kind of outdated, and so we'll be recreating them. And then, just based on how some things are set up now, we probably be recommending to move some functions from one department to another, because it's more efficient to move it to a certain department to where it allows for efficiencies of scale.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Council, any other comments, sir? And then, Councilman?
Just a comment or two.
Yes, sir.
I am happy to see this moving forward. I've been interested in a comprehensive study for some time of this nature, and I like everything that you've presented and
Thank you.
how this is gonna play out. I think will be beneficial for all of our 500 range employees, but I know that we have a department in particular that I'm familiar with that has a couple of vacancies that have been, positions have been vacant for over a year, because the private sector, when you compare private sector pay to what that particular position's pay, and nobody won't come apply. And so I know that this will help justify making some adjustments there to try to fill some of these positions and take that increased workload off of the others that are doing that job and are having to do the job with two people, because those positions remain open. So I'm excited to see this study move forward, and especially if it's one as comprehensive as this, because I think we'll be able to benefit from it, and our HR department will be able to greatly benefit from this information. Thank you for your presentation.
And I will be coming back to share results as we start, coming up with findings and recommendations. And then I also spoke to the mayor this afternoon, and I asked if he was okay if I put the offer out there, if any council member wanted to sit down and talk about anything relative to the two studies. I'll be happy to set a time to sit down and talk to you about it.
Councilwoman?
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you
Yes,
so
ma'am.
much. This was very impressive. And I don't want to put you on the spot, and maybe you might not want to share it, or maybe you can just tell me later. You did say that there were some items and things that stood out to you. Maybe if you just share one item that stood out.
I would share it, but when you put something out there, you can't take it back. You can't unhear it. And so until I have more concrete information, because I'm just glancing at what I saw, I don't know the backstory regarding why it is the way it is, I'd rather not say that in an open forum until I have more information.
I understand. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Council, any other comments, questions?
Yes, sir.
Councilman?
Yes, sir. I would take you up on an individual one-on-one basis.
Okay. I'll be sending back a time and date to Bernadette when I'll come, and she'll send it out to the council and let you know. And I look forward to talking to you.
All right, thank you.
And council, there's also the second piece.
Yes.
I do need a little bit of a consensus from council. Do we have a rough price or anything like that?
Yes, Mayor, that was 45,000 for the
And that would be additional beyond what was budgeted
Yes.
for this in the budget?
Yes, the pay and comp is 40, the organization study would be 5.
And what was the total amount that was budgeted for this in the budget? Do you remember?
40.
40 even? Okay, so it would be an additional 45. Council, Is there any consensus? Is that something that we want to undertake at this time? Is that something that we want to hold off on? In general, we do need some sort of consensus so that we can offer some guidance on that one.
That's why I was asking, do we have any, internal platforms that, and I'm just trying to educate myself, any internal platforms such as Airtable or anything that we use that captures any of this information, the job descriptions, anything, the, asking the employee about the turnover rate with anonymity, any of that, is it in place already and
Well,
that you're aware of?
do you do exit interviews? They do exit interviews to ask employees why they're leaving. Is it compensation or is it a better opportunity? Things along that lines. But beyond just creating organizational charts and job descriptions, looking at process and procedures, the city internally would not have something of that type in place, whereas you can tie modern practices with process and procedures relative to what you're doing now, because there wouldn't have been a push to do that internally. And so that's the big piece that we bring to the table, is objectively looking at operations, policies, procedures, to, in essence, determine, is there a better way to do it, a more cost-effective way to do it, and that is the impetus of the work.
When we get finished with this study, will we then have the processes in place? Will we have some kind of database in place that we can go forward?
You will have
capture some of this
a
information
blueprint
ourselves?
with respect to what departments we think need to be restructured, realigned, and why. Any functions that need to be realigned or moved to another department. Staffing, not only looking at current staffing, but based on changes in terms of mandates, services, even population, we can look and plot what staffing will look like over a point in time, 3 to 5 years, so that from a budgeting and planning standpoint, you can anticipate that. From IT, for example, as we look at your infrastructure, letting you know what type of investment it would take to give you that modern, effective technology infrastructure. And that, you know, you'd be able to budget for that incrementally to make sure you upgrade the equipment.
Ms. Bernadette, can you tell me when's the last time you had a study this intensive?
The last compensation impact study was done in 2019, implemented in 2020.
But you've never done an operational
There's
assessment?
never been an organization study, no.
That's an interesting part of this. Again, I would certainly be willing to ask if there was another cities that you could show us, if there's anything that could be public, so we could kind of see what it looks like to be able to really digest it, if that's at all possible. It's something that I'm very interested in. I think that a lot of things in organizations happen because they have happened, not necessarily because they were planned for. And as we are coming up on a couple of very, very tough budget years and some things where that we know that we need to do different services, I would like that information if it's a one-time cost, and then of course it comes into the budgeting piece of it. So it is something that I would like to have, but I'm not the manager, I'm not the HR director, I'm not the finance director, so I kind of need y'all to say if it's something that you endorse doing, if it's something that you want to do, or if it's something that's a cost that isn't necessary at this time.
So, just to touch on that, Mayor, it's a very important thing. I think what it is, it's a roadmap to the future. And we really need to understand, you know, how we're operating. You know, we can look at it on a day-to-day basis, but when you look at it through the whole lens of how everything's functioning, whether it's siloed or streamless, interconnected the way it needs to be, and there's a lot of nuances to that kind of study that they've done hundreds of these, that they can sort of say, these are the best management practices, and this is a better way forward for you. And so it helps out tremendously from a management perspective, in my opinion.
I'm going to agree with him. I'm very familiar with the study, and I think it's important, especially the timeline that she's saying, and we've never had the organizational one. I'm going to agree that it's necessary if we're going to grow and go forward.
I'd like to make the investment myself. Councilman, anyone else before we? Okay. I think we have a general consensus towards yes. Obviously, we'll have to do a formal vote, and then at that time, if there's any there's any discussion, if there's any document that you can show us between now and then of what one would look like so that we can truly make an educated, decision once it is time to vote, that would be great.
Okay.
Without that, I think it's a bit of a blind conversation.
Sure.
So I do wanna see that, but, I'm certainly interested in the results. So,
Okay.
Councilman?
So, since we budgeted for one portion, then the second portion is not budgeted for, then we just simply, we'd be doing a budget amendment to get that?
Correct.
Because I certainly would be in favor of that, seeing as how we've never had one done before. I think that's an important part of, retooling and moving forward that we all agreed to begin with that we wanted to do.
Well, let's get a, even if it's a redacted version, let's.
Sure,
get
I'll get you something.
So we can kind of see it, and we'll have some conversations, and, we'll know if it's something that we want to put on the agenda, for consideration at our next meeting or not, and then we'll be able to move forward. But either way, Dr. Campbell, just phenomenally impressive. Enjoyed our conversation just before
Thank you.
the meeting again. Ms. Dove, as always, wonderful selection. If the council has anything else, I'll certainly yield the floor. If not, Dr. Campbell, safe travels, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, I appreciate it. It's a pleasure meeting everyone.
See you soon.
Thank you.
All right, council, next, we have a closed session that we need to get into for, to discuss pending litigation. That is at 6 o'clock. Before you go any further on the Zoom, if you'd please pause, and then we'll clear the chamber. Matt, if you would please stay.
We still need a vote?
I know, we're getting there.
Okay.
I was just pointing out who I wanted to stick around.
Okay.
Just potential litigation.
Just potential litigation at this time.
Okay.
And I have a feeling that will be enough at this time, and then we'll probably have to go back into close later to discuss personnel. All right, so with that, council, we need a motion to go into closed session to discuss pending litigation.
Make a motion that we go into closed session.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion is made and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion passes. All right, we're in closed. Let us know when we're actually in closed. we'll stand in recess until 7:10. make sure that we end that with enough time to get over here to greet everybody, but tonight simply did not work out. So we are going to move directly into our now 7 o'clock session. Once we do a roll call, our call to order, invocation, pledge of allegiance, roll call, we're then going to move back to our work session and finish up a piece of old business, and then we'll move on with our agenda for the evening. So with that, Father Wiley, our police chaplain, if you'd come forward and lead us in prayer.
Let us pray. Gracious, loving, and almighty God, we give you thanks for the abundant blessings of this life. We thank you for gathering us together here this evening. And we thank you for this beautiful city that we call Goldsboro. Father, we ask that you visit us this evening. Send your Holy Spirit upon these leaders as they make decisions that affect all of us. Give them wisdom and grace to make decisions to the benefit of everyone, rich, poor, young, old. And Father, we ask that you pour your Spirit upon each citizen, that we might continue to see your image in each other, so that we might make decisions for the betterment of everyone, for the peace of the city. All this we ask in the name of your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, if you please do a roll call.
Mayor Gaylor.
Present.
Mayor
Present.
Councilwoman Jones.
Present.
Councilman Boyette.
Present.
Councilwoman Taylor.
Present.
Councilwoman Weeks.
Present.
Councilman White.
Present.
All right, all present and accounted for. Thank you again for making it across the breezeway. We'll move directly back to our remaining session, or remaining piece from our work session, a progress review of our Big Ditch Design Project. Mr. Manager, or Mr. Interim Manager, if you'd take us away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. As the board knows, we've got a fairly large project, roughly $7.5 million, where we're converting a lot of our traditional big ditch concrete structure into more of a natural structure that will enhance the community and also better manage our stormwater. We have selected a consultant to do that. We went through the bid process, and I've got Jonathan here to explain a little bit more of the details as well, but that's it in a nutshell, Mayor.
Thank you. Josh, up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We have, I think we have anyway, we're trying to get the Zoom. I've got Travis Klondike and Leslie Bartlebaugh on from NC State Coastal Dynamics Design Lab. They've been helping us with this, and they kind of secured the grant for us, the FEMA brick grant, $5.9 million. So they got a little 5-slide presentation, so I'll let them kind of take it away.
Just waiting.
Oh, waiting for, okay, sorry.
They should come up in a minute.
Okay. Yeah, so we got $2 million appropriated in the state budget for this project, and I think that's what the design fees are going to come out of. And I'm bringing a consent agenda item a little later on when we get to that point. We did get to $5.9 million. I think there's $675,000 that we're going to do in design fees and engineering fees. That's going to get us to this point in the project, and that's going to be a good project. We're excited about it over in Elmwood Terrace. I can't really say anything else. That's pretty much it.
If you don't want to stand there when everyone's staring at you, it's okay. You can have a
It's all
seat,
good.
and then we'll call you back up.
Okay.
So they're not gonna hear us, but we'll hear them.
Okay.
They're having trouble with the mics.
These poor folks have been sitting in a holding room on Zoom since 5 o'clock. I don't blame them for having a problem with the mic.
Actually, us.
Oh, it's us this time?
No, never mind.
Yeah, well, I can blame us.
Sorry about that.
While we work through that, can I proceed with approval of the minutes and then come back to it? I realize we're in the middle of it, but as to not waste time, council, until they are able to pull them up and get the technical order resolved, I'm going to move to item 4A, minutes from the work session and regular meeting of June 17th, 2024. And again, I do apologize for bouncing around like this. I just want to be efficient with our time. Minutes have been presented to council for review. Are there any comments or questions? The minutes for the work session and regular meeting of June 17th. Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes of the work session and regular meeting, motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes.
There we go. We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Brad, are you able to hear us?
All right.
Are you typing
All
it?
opposed, same
Yes.
sign. Hearing none, or seeing none, motion passes. All right. Minutes from the work session and the regular meeting of June 17th are approved. Now we'll return back. Mr. Perry, if there's anything else.
I just got a message from Jonathan Perry saying that they can hear us, so we will proceed.
Perfect. And if you want to call them in the background, you
thanks
can.
for allowing us the time to present to you all tonight. My name is Travis Klondike. I'm with the Coastal Dynamics Design Lab at NC State University. I'm joined tonight by Leslie Bardaval and Mary Beth Campo, also with the team at NC State. We're going to do a really quick presentation as a recap of the Big Ditch Stream Restoration and Infrastructure Improvements Project, and also provide a little bit of context around the consent agenda item seeking the approval of the vendor from an RFQ process that just completed with the city. So I will share my screen. Hopefully this works. All right, I'm going to assume you all can see the screen. So a quick recap of the Big Ditch effort. We previously presented this project to City Council in November. And it was adopted and approved as part of the Goldsboro floodplain effort. The project proposed, in short, the restoration of approximately 2,300 linear feet of stream, predominantly.
Uh-oh. We have the pictures.
Yep. We'll just pause. Jonathan, do me a favor. Step out, get on the phone with them, let them know that we are going to do our employee performance awards, and then we will come back to them when we can properly focus and give it the attention it deserves. All right. So with that, Interim Manager Mr. Livingston, if you would please bring us forward with our employee performance awards.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We have two tonight, starting out with the Supervisor of the Quarter Award, fourth quarter of fiscal year 23-24. This award goes to Richard Hamilton for outstanding achievement. On May 14th, 2024, around 10:30 p.m., Deputy Public Utilities Director Richard Hamilton received a distress call from Case Farms reporting hydrant flushing conducted by Wayne County Water Service. The flushing process initiated in front of Case Farms at approximately 10 a.m., and by 12:30 p.m. the water quality had deteriorated and turned yellow, necessitating the facility to shut down. Wayne Water District affirmed the safety of the water, but it was unsightly and not to the standard needed to process chickens. In response to Case Farms' plea for help, Richard promptly contacted the city distribution crew, but due to staffing constraints after hours, the crew was unable to provide immediate assistance. In a display of professionalism and dedication, Richard went to Case Farms at approximately 11:20 p.m. and began flushing the hydrant by the building side. By 12:10 a.m., the water quality had noticeably improved. Richard departed at 12:20 a.m., leaving Case Farms back in operation. Richard's exemplary professionalism, integrity, and commitment to customer service shone through as he extended his expertise to a local company in need. The estimated economic loss damaged products at Case Farms was $37,000. a figure that could have increased substantially if not for Richard's quick action and assistance. Richard is an outstanding example of commitment and adherence to the highest levels of customer and public service. Richard demonstrates professionalism and integrity. He leads by example and dedicates himself to finding solutions in a timely manner. Richard's work ethic and accomplishments reflect well on himself and the city of Goldsboro.
Perfect. Richard, come forward. Perfect. First. You're coming, Sue. Yeah.
And I think a nice shirt on. That's a beautiful shirt. With a hat, everything. He looks sharp.
I've known Richard for 18 years now? Oh, yeah. Gosh. And his customer service skills just improves and constantly, all the time. I'm very proud of what he does out there. Another example was we had another concern over at another facility, and he facilitated that comfort level to where everybody really enjoyed just being there. So I have to say I'm very proud of him for what he's done. Means a lot.
All right. Well, it's a late night now. Thank you. Thank you. And you know that's one of our really big industry partners that we go out of our way to try and give them exemplary service, and the fact that you stepped up when the late night in the middle of the thing. And as I think it may have been a note from you, but their loss was in the tens of thousands, where if you had not acted would have been hundreds of thousands. Not to mention all the food waste and things that go with that. So that's above and beyond. So thank you.
Not to mention my next door neighbor knocking on my door.
No problem. So you, what's the word? And do you have any family here? All right, perfect. Right here, do you want? Yeah, other than that, it is. Do you want a picture with him? Oh, yeah. There you go. And Matt, if you please recognize Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. Employee of the fourth quarter fiscal year, this has been awarded to Michael Braswell for outstanding achievement. Michael Braswell is performing the duties of senior maintenance technician, training for maintenance technicians, filling the role of a supervisor, and perform superintendent duties when needed. Michael also strives to improve his knowledge and skill set, recently completing certifications for facilities and grounds manager through the American Public Works Association. Michael has spearheaded numerous large projects, including the reinstallation of street light poles, rewiring food truck poles at the hub, saving the city thousands of dollars. He was also responsible for leading the building and grounds maintenance crews in preparation for the Main Street Conference. Michael's leadership and assistance led to the changing of 168 banners on Center Street and in the John Street parking lot, 26 window door coverings installed at Goldsboro Union Station, hanging a new sign at the hub, and numerous other improvements to ensure downtown Goldsboro shined. All this within a 2-week time frame. Michael is a volunteer on the Art Steering Committee, providing guidance on the installation process of artwork for both the artist and the city. As a volunteer with the Arts Council, he has assisted in numerous projects, helping to improve the aesthetics of our downtown. Michael is a consummate team player, a benefit to the Buildings and Grounds, Public Works, and the city of Goldsboro. He has a deep desire to improve the aesthetics, distinction, and reputation of the city of Goldsboro. Michael's work ethic and accomplishments reflect well on himself and the city of Goldsboro.
Anything else you want to add? I just want to thank Michael. Our department's been through quite a lot the last 2 years, a lot of challenges, a lot of struggles, and without his being by my side and helping me, assisting me, we'd have never accomplished what we've done. It's a pleasure and an honor to work with you, Mike. Right on. And how's the family going to introduce?
This is my son Cohen Breslin,
Awesome.
and my wife Megan Breslin.
Wonderful. So how would you like to do pictures? All right, perfect, let's do it. And then let's get them right here next to you. Obviously, they're the important ones here in the middle.
Matt, get in the picture.
We're going to. I'll get in. There you go. On the other side.
Yeah, or either on the other side of them. There you go.
Got centered up?
Make sure we can see you.
And then you want one for the family. Now it's completely up to y'all if you want to stay for the rest of the show or excuse yourself to wherever else it is that you might want to be. Somebody's got to do it. So few people say they want to stay, Father. It's something we got to work on, right? All right, let's try one more time our presentation on the progress review for the Big Dish Design Project. Mr. Perry, if you had anything to kick us off, or are we just going straight to Zoom?
All right, hopefully y'all can hear us again. All right, I'm going to attempt to share my screen but leave the camera off, so hopefully that helps. I will go back to the beginning and share screen and then go from there. All right, so as a quick recap of the Big Ditch project, we previously shared this project as part of a broader approval of the Goldsboro floodprint report and the 3 primary projects contained within it, one of which was the restoration and infrastructure improvements surrounding it within the Big Ditch stream, which is just a few blocks east of Center Street. The primary focus area of the project is approximately 2,300 linear feet of stream with 2 kind of separate focus areas within that. There's one area, the most upstream portion, which is within the Elmwood Terrace Housing Authority property, shown in the primary picture here. And then a southern portion south of Elm Street, which is just east of Willowdale Cemetery. This project aims to restore the condition here to a bit more of a naturalized floodplain in a floodplain park within the Elmwood Terrace community, while also upgrading 3 bridge and culvert conditions that the stream crosses underneath. While in effect reducing significantly the flood damage for over 80 homes in the project area and allowing 2 of the 3 road crossings to withstand 100 and 500-year flood events. The project impacts are both specific to the Elmwood Terrace community, but also Goldsboro more broadly. So while the primary intent of the project is to better control and manage floodwaters, there are secondary benefits such as improved water quality, increasing the amount of habitat available for wildlife, and addressing existing inequities in access to recreational space that this project will accomplish. So since we last spoke to y'all, we have some updates primarily concerning funding and next steps regarding an RFQ process that we have been assisting the city and the Housing Authority with. So during our last meeting in November when we presented to City Council, that's when the Goldsboro floodplain projects were adopted, and we were able to share at that time a $2 million grant from the State Emergency Response and Disaster Relief Fund. I will let Leslie take it over to talk about what has happened since then and where we are currently with the RFQ process.
Thanks, Travis. Since then, we were able to submit the sub-application for FEMA BRIC, which is Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Program, in February 2024, which then led to a $5.5 million selection announcement from FEMA BRIC. And those grant monies have been designated for the project pending results of the federal review. Next slide. And that brings us to today. With all of those monies in hand, we can then begin the process of design, engineering, and construction. So the first step has been to enter into that design engineering RFQ process, which we've worked throughout this summer. The result of that RFQ was 4 qualified teams responding and providing their statement of qualification packages. And from there, we are now seeking City Council approval of the preferred vendor after the interviews with 2 finalists. So the team led by Gresham Smith has been selected, and we can go to the next slide to describe the selection process and the resulting contractual process from there. So all teams were evaluated based on their cover letter, project team, relevant experience and equity, with project team and relevant experience having the most weight. And the teams led by Gresham Smith and Kimley Horn scored the highest and were invited to participate in interviews, during which the selection committee selected Gresham Smith as the preferred vendor because they were most qualified with regard to the very full scope of work, had the most complete team dynamic and understanding of client needs. So the contractual parameters that we will enter into with Gresham Smith include, with regard to budget, the city has established the following budget maximum for completing the requested services for this project: $670,320. And that is coming from the aforementioned State Emergency Response and Disaster Relief Fund, the SERDIF funds. And this matches the line item budget as specified in the FEMA BRIC proposal and will serve as part of the local cost share requirement. And again, the scope of this particular contract includes all survey, hydraulic modeling, design engineering, permitting, and cost estimating necessary to satisfy the Phase 1 FEMA review. And so with that, again, we are seeking approval to negotiate with Gresham Smith for that said scope with regard to the Big Ditch project. Anything to add, Travis?
I think that's it. Again, if there's any questions, I guess feel free to type in the chat, or Jonathan can call me. But if not, we will just look for an approval on the consent agenda. We'll hang on here in case there are any questions that pop up in the chat for a while. But if not, then we look forward to taking next steps on this project with you all. Thanks.
Council, not that we have a mechanism for doing so, but are there any questions? If not, then we can get Jonathan to text him or put him in the chat. Hearing none. This one does come back up as item C on the consent agenda as well. So if there aren't any questions right now, we can bring them up in just a few minutes then as well. So we're good. Mr. Livingston, I presume we're good on that one for now?
I think so, yes, sir.
All right, so with that, we'll move into item 6, public comment period. Madam Clerk, once you have the sign-in sheet.
There's no one on the sign-in sheet.
All right. So with that, we will close the public comment period, and we will move to the consent agenda.
Just a minute.
Yes.
Did you announce that we could speak now, the public could speak?
The public comment period, the policy, there's a sign-in sheet at the beginning that's out by the door for you to sign in on.
I came down here early this morning, and the lady that was working downstairs at the desk,
Ma'am, if
she called
Just
up
sign in.
and-
ma'am, if you just come forward and sign in, and that way we have your name and information,
Yes.
and then we'll follow along with our standard policies for the public comment period.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else to speak during the public comment period? Okay. And please come forward.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, good evening to everyone.
Evening.
My name is Nancy Fallon, and I have resided in the Pill Hill area for almost 18 years. On August the 2nd, 2024, at approximately 1:30 p.m., Judge Erica Y. James came to my home, announced she came to my home, and she did not. She came to my home. She is not an associate of mine, nor is she a friend. She asked if I knew who she was. I replied yes. She announced who she was anyway. She said, "I am Erica James." She went on to say that a couple of my neighbors did not like the Billy Strickland sign that was placed in my front yard. I did not reply to that because this sign is on my property. What I did say to Judge Erica James was that you did a terrible injustice to me.
Ma'am, if you would, is this part of city business? I don't want to get into somebody else's campaign.
The people in Wayne County need to know that these things are happening. When someone mentions Pill Hill, Your Honor, there's no accountability there. People need to know what I've been through in that Pill Hill area since I've moved there. I don't even allow my family to come there because of what's been going on there. There's no accountability down at the police station. You can't do anything the right way. And so this is why I'm here now. People need to know what's going on. I don't need to go to Greenville to get an attorney because you can't get an attorney to satisfy you here when you're dealing with people that work for the courts. You cannot do that. I'm 81 years old, and I don't have the money. When I did have the money to save to take this woman into court a few years ago when she did what she did in her courtroom, she had left the area. I thought she had moved. I tried to get an address for her, and I couldn't get an address, and I was told that she had left the country. This is not right for this woman. She's a sitting judge. She had no right to come to my house to question me about a sign that's on my property. No right whatsoever. This is not right. This is not right. This is not right, and the city need to stop letting the people in Pill Hill do what they want to do to people. I don't allow my family to come there. I've been there for almost 18 years. It will be in October. Only my 2 children come there. Since I've been there, those are the only 2 people that come to my house because of what has happened to me in that neighborhood, and it's been a lot. I'm out of pocket a lot of money. I'm out of pocket a lot of money, and I'm trying to protect my person. Sleepless nights. Please. I've heard it. This didn't happen to you. It happened to me.
Ma'am, I understand, but we have policies that we use for our public comment period. We have to keep things within our standard procedures. I have your contact information. I will be in touch with you. The city manager and I will be in touch with you. I want to hear what you have to say.
Did I put my phone number down, ma'am?
If not, please do. Please do.
Yeah,
I want to hear what you have to say, but I have to keep.
Because I'm in a lot of pain here. I'm out of a lot of money, and this is not right. What they allow Pill Hill people to do to black people.
Ma'am.
And I'm gonna say it again, to black people, and I'm black.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank Thank you, ma'am. She need to be kicked out of there. No sitting judge should be doing what she did.
Ma'am, please.
I'm leaving out of here, and I'm sorry if I upset you.
Ma'am, you haven't upset anybody. I'm just trying to keep the meeting
I know.
on the
Thank you
rails.
so much,
Yes,
sir.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Livingston, if you would please take us through the consent agenda items. Sorry, is there anyone else to come forward? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. Mr. Livingston, if you would
Thank you, Mayor,
please
Council.
address the consent agenda.
Item D is operating budget amendment. Essentially, about a month ago, we approved an economic incentive agreement for Team Foods USA in the amount of $57,843 to make sure we properly disperse that money. We're requesting a budget amendment. We can properly audit our figures. Item E is NC Freedom Fest. C, we already did C. That was the, okay. Well, we had the presentation, item C, I beg your pardon, for the contract for Gresham Smith, and essentially what they're asking is that this city council approve Gresham Smith as the contractor. So item D, I just went over. Item E is the Freedom Fest street closure request. They had a presentation last month, as you recall. It's a standard closing of the streets that they've done in several of the past several years. The date of the event for the festival is September 5th through 7th, various activities. I'm just going through them as quickly as I can so we don't really have to spend a lot of time on them. Approve a water and sewer system capital improvement plan. That's item F. And that's basically needed to help us get the points that we need for future grants. It's very, very competitive these days, and we haven't been able to capitalize on our grants as well as we can. Plus, we just need to have this, and this is going to be incorporated into our CIP, which we're working feverishly on now. And item G is advisory boards commission appointments. You can see there that there are currently several vacancies on the advisory boards and commissions. We just need to work through those so we can keep filling these vacancies and get these boards the members and volunteers they need to be able to do their daily business. I won't go into each one of those vacancies. You can see them there. If you have any questions for me, please feel free to ask.
Council, as always, with the consent agenda, these are all things that have been previously discussed. Is there anything that council would either like to pull off for items requiring individual action, or are there any specific questions about any of these that we can address?
I just got one quick question,
Yes, Councilman.
just to refresh my memory. I know Freedom Fest is from,
Microphone.
oh, I'm sorry, I thought I was speaking, I was using my drill song voice.
I can hear you.
All right, I know, the Freedom Fest is from 5 to 7. Just refresh me, are we closing the entire downtown for those from 5 to 7?
Do you mind rolling back through the actual application?
So the street closers are going to work like this. On 9/5/2023, actually this should be 2024, the northbound lane of South Center Street from Spruce Street to Chestnut Street from 12 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. On 9/7, so there's a little gap there. That's for the Taste of Wayne, as I recall. 9/7/2024, the northbound and southbound lanes of Center Street from Ash Street to Chestnut Street from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. The north and southbound lanes of Center Street from Spruce to Chestnut Street from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And Spruce Street between Center and James Street from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then Chestnut Street from John Street, James Street from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Okay.
And again, if council so desires, we can pull things off the consent agenda onto items requiring individual action if we so choose. Just put things up there that are already basically either routine or recurring, or have already been discussed to some degree. Council, any motions either to approve the consent agenda items as presented or to move anything off?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
As presented? Yes, ma'am. Is there a second? All right, motion has been made and properly seconded to approve the consent agenda items as presented, items C through G. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll conduct a roll call vote. Madam Clerk?
Mayor Taylor?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Matthews? Councilwoman Jones?
Yes.
Councilwoman Webb?
Yes.
Councilwoman Taylor?
Yes.
Councilwoman Weeks?
Yes.
Councilman Hodges?
Yes.
All right. Consent agenda items C through G are approved. I appreciate that work, Mr. Interim Manager. Next, we'll move to the Interim City Manager's Report, item 9. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Just to let you know, the next few months, we're working towards a paperless agenda, so we'll have a new, I guess, agenda management software is what it's called. We'll also have a way that we can do the voting so that you can see it similar to what the county does. But the objective of this is to reduce the paper, increase our efficiency in our meetings, streamline the process of submitting things onto the agenda, and get a lot of continuity. I've always used this wherever I've been, and I don't know, Laura, if you've got anything more to add, but you know, they've been through the process, been working on this, and I think we're looking at rolling out in another 2 months. Is that? So I just wanted to make you aware of that. I think you'll find this. I think our department heads in the city will find this to be a lot better than what we had. I know we've talked a lot about parking management. We have reached an agreement with a consultant to come back and give a presentation to the city council on the next meeting on the 19th. His name is Dwight. I think it's Bassett. Is that his Bassett? And Dwight was the gentleman that gave the presentation early on to us and kind of walked us through the process when we had some public hearings and whatnot. At that point in time, we may be able to have a better feeling for any of the data that we've got, and he's been looking at it and he's been evaluating it, so we've been giving him that. And you said that you wanted this to be data-driven, so you know he can come back and give us some recommendations at that time, and we can talk about what we think or the direction we feel like we need to go from there. But that's parking management. We've been meeting with department heads, myself and the assistant city manager, about improvements within our best management practices and things like that, and that's been going really good. It's helping us sort of evaluate some of the strengths and weaknesses of the city and where we need to go with certain things. And they've been real good about getting some best management practices to them so we can work with them to help them implement those and help improve some of the processes that we do. Likewise, we're meeting with individual city council members. I've been looking forward to that, met with several of you already. The goal there is to understand or better understand what it is that you want to see accomplished in your term here as a city council member, and to make sure that we're aligning our resources the way you feel like we need to be aligning them. And that's all I've got for my report.
Perfect, thank you. So with that, we'll move to item 10, Mayor and Council Member comments. As our tradition, it's the first meeting of the month. So Councilwoman Jones, I'll begin with you, and then we'll work our way down the desk.
Yes, I have a lot of things on my mind, but I'm choosing not to say them tonight. But what I will say is that we are expecting a really bad storm, and I really would like for everybody to try to be safe, check on your parents, and also in my district, there are some streets that flood easily, like DuPont Circle and some other areas. So you guys just move your cars somewhere else. So because it's better to move your car than have to repair an engine. So please be safe.
Thank you. Councilman, floor is yours.
Okay. As always, I'd like to thank our hardworking city employees, each and every one that are out there making it happen for our city each and every day. Especially keep all of those that'll be out during this storm, taking care of the city. Keep them in your thoughts and prayers as they take care of us. That's all my comments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman?
No comment.
Understood. Pro Tem, floor is yours.
No comment.
Thank you. Councilwoman, floor is yours.
I had a lady in my district celebrating her 102nd birthday, and so I just wanted to congratulate Miss Sudie McCandless on beautiful life of 102 years. And then also, I just wanted to thank everyone who invited the council to the Goldsboro Wayne Purple Heart Banquet. We all had an amazing time honoring our local combat wounded veterans and the Gold Star families. And so that was just a great honor, a great tribute to be a part of that.
Wonderful, thank you. Councilman, floor is yours.
I would like to also echo the sentiments of being prepared for the storm. We don't know how much or when we'll get it, so I hope that we're doing some forward foxhole digging so we don't have to be reactive, be proactive. I also would like to just say to the public that the city had made, and it might have been Mayor Pro Tem that actually got the sprinkler systems over at W.A. Foster, and they discontinued it because of the lack of participation. So I would just like to say to our constituents and our citizens that when we do have those type of programs, we need to take full advantage of those things as another thing that we can do to keep our young people engaged in something positive. And then lastly, World Contracting will be doing a back to school bash right here across the street here. I ask that we come out and support, bring your kids out so they can get some back to school items and socialize and be ready for a great school year.
Thank you, sir. And as always, it's a little bit easier going last. So a little bit of this is going to be an echo. With the storm coming up, don't forget there are certain streets in the city that is unavoidable. They're going to get a few inches of water on them. Make good decisions there. If you're looking for information on the storm, hurricane.gov is the easy one, or WREL, take your pick, but stay aware of what's going on. Make sure you have some water, stuff like that, just in case you lose power. Well, very much yet to be determined how much of a flooding event this may or may not be all the way over here with us. Next, back to school bash, huge event every year because it is that time of year. To the schools that are taking back in this week, I wish those families good luck and those students a safe and enjoyable academic year. Of course, our local colleges also taking back in the next couple of weeks, and so to anyone that's going to be happening before we have another council meeting, I just wanted to go on and get on the record that it's worth it. It's hard work. Stay focused. Parents, hug your kids every day. Tell them you love them. Remind them why they're doing it, because they're making really good decisions, and you want to make sure you support them. And then lastly, National Night Out tomorrow night. I absolutely hate that due to the weather, it needed to be canceled, but I know that so much work had gone into planning that event, and I want to go on record as saying I so appreciate all the work that so many of the men and women in our police department had put trying to get things organized and get the vendors organized. And I hate it, but you're still going to see some National Night Out shirts tomorrow. So that closes my comments. Council, we do need to return to closed session to discuss a personnel matter. I don't believe that it will be a very long meeting, but nonetheless, we do need to return to closed session. So with that, Council, I'll entertain a motion to return to closed session to discuss a personnel matter.
I'll make a motion that we go into closed session.
All right, motion's been made. Is there a second? All right, motion's been made and properly seconded to go into closed session to discuss personnel. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, please raise your hands. All opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion passes. We are returning to closed session.
off work this week.
I wonder who she met with. She went with
Do you mind texting Matt as well, or calling him?
Right, it's time to go.
Yeah.
At least it ain't midnight.
Councilman Boyd yet voted.
And
who made the motion and Weeks? Councilman Boyd made the second.